Okay, hey guys, welcome to this video. So a couple days ago, I put on my Instagram story, which if you're not following me on Instagram, you can go follow me on Instagram. I put the question sticker up and then I asked you guys to send me popular book series that you're like confused by or you want someone to explain it to you. You don't know where to start. I've compiled your guys' answers to like the most requested ones and like the most popular book series. So I thought that in this video, I would go through and just do like the ultimate guide slash beginner's guide slash everything you need to know slash me just explaining confusing book series that are like 8 million books long. Most of them were fantasy book series, which I understand because I feel like fantasy is like harder because you need to like understand the world and stuff like that. And a lot of them were ones that I have in fact read before, even if I've never talked about them. And so in this video, I'm going to be explaining a popular fantasy book series so that hopefully you guys can get a better sense of like what they are and then maybe you can read them if you want. I'm going to be giving my very honest opinions about them too. Yeah, even though I know that they're very popular. Am I gonna be crucified for that? We'll see. Yeah, okay, I'm gonna be explaining 6 popular book series. The Shadowhunters, the Throne of Glass series, the ACOTAR series, the Grishaverse world, and then the Folk of the Air, and then lastly is gonna be the These Violent Delights slash Secret Shanghai world. So if you were ever curious or interested in reading any of those, then keep on watching. For each of those book series, I have my little notes. I'm gonna be explaining the world and magic system for each of these because I feel like that's probably like the most confusing part. And then the reading order, which I also think is also another confusing part, especially when there's a multiple book series. And then all the key players, so important characters, tropes, if there are any. Okay, let's dive right in. The most highly requested one, and in my opinion, the fattest one. This one by far has the most amount of books, which is the Shadowhunter series by Cassandra Clare. Let's first get into the world. I'm gonna put my knees up. Hope they don't look busted. Okay, I think they're fine. So the entire Cassandra Clare Shadowhunters world revolves around obviously a group slash society slash race of people called Shadowhunters, aka Nephilim. Nephilim. That is like the technical word. Shadowhunters is like what people just call them. They are half angel and half human, and so their whole thing is that they kill demons. They train to hunt demons since a young age. All this happens in secret. They exist among us, but us lowly non-Shadowhunter humans are called mundanes. The main things about Shadowhunters is that, well, they're hot. Dumb. And they can get like special abilities, strength, speed, agility, that kind of stuff by putting, essentially they look like tattoos, but like they just put marks on their body, and those are called runes if you're American, and they're called marks if you're British. Put it on their body, it gives them some kind of ability. Important information, if you try to put a rune or a mark on a human who doesn't have like any Shadowhunter blood, they will die. A very gruesome death. They train in institutes that are also invisible to us lowly mundanes, obviously, but they exist in each major city. So there's like a New York Institute, LA Institute, London Institute, and in each book series, we are mostly following a group of young Shadowhunters who live and train at these institutes, probably because they have parental issues, as in they have a bad relationship with their parents, they don't have any family, they're orphans, something like that. That's why they're training at the institute, and those are pretty much all the time who our main characters are. The last important piece of the puzzle to this world are the downworlders, basically just like the umbrella term for like any creature that's like not a Shadowhunter and not a human. So these include vampires, werewolves, warlocks, and fairies. Also, a little important thing to know about like the politics of this is that Shadowhunters and downworlders have an agreement where they won't like hurt each other called the Accords. Basically, it's just to keep like full out war from happening between downworlders and Shadowhunters. And the Accords are very important. If you break an Accord, ooh, it's over. That's not good. Yeah, but they mostly just keep to your sides, and there's always like hostility between them, but no one wants to break the Accords. Oh my gosh, one last part that I forgot. How can I forget? Something called a parabatai bond, and it's basically where 2 Shadowhunters can like do a ceremony slash an agreement to become parabatai to each other. It's pledging to like be each other's partner in like battle and stuff like that. Most of the time, it means that you're closer than family. Parabatai are forbidden from falling in love, but we'll get to that. Well, those are all the things that I think are most important to know about the world. Now let's get into the reading order slash the series. This is just my opinion. Currently, there are 4 separate book series, but not all of them are like connected where you have to read something in order to read something else, in my opinion. First, we have the original book series, The Mortal Instruments. In order, it is City of Bones, City of Ashes, City of Glass, City of Fallen Angels, City of Lost Souls, and City of Heavenly Fire. There are 6 books. Key players in this series is Clary Frey, Jace Wayland. They're like the main characters that we are mainly following. Clary is like a mundane girl, or she thought that she was a mundane. And then also important main characters that aren't Jace and Clary is Simon, which is Clary's best friend. There's a little bit of a friends to lovers for a hot minute, but and then there's Isabel and Alec, who are Jace's friends. So Isabel and Alec are siblings. Alec and Jace are a pair of a tie. Another important key player is Magnus Bane. He's a warlock. Is a recurring character in like most of these book series. Oh, actually almost all of them, I think. I think all of them. And he's like a warlock who just helps our main characters. He's also Asian. Love that. These are the books that I read first. I think objectively, they are the worst ones in this entire universe. The second series that was published is the Infernal Devices series. Oh my gosh. Wait, I have Mortal Instruments was 6 books. The Infernal Devices is only a trilogy. This is like my favorite trilogy of all time. So we have Clockwork Angel, Clockwork Prince, and then Clockwork Princess, which is the one that I have. This trilogy is prequel trilogy to the Mortal Instruments. It takes place in Victorian London. Doesn't matter what order you read these 2 book series in. The only thing is that the world building, they don't really explain the world and magic system as deeply in depth as they do in the Mortal Instruments. They do briefly explain it. It's just like the biggest info dump you'll ever see, but it's fine. It's fine. Key players are Tessa, Will Herondale, Jem Carstairs. It's the Holy Trinity. Best love triangle I've ever read about. They are in the London Institute. Most emotional pain you'll ever feel in your entire life. In my opinion, this was her best book series. I'm so biased because I love this book series. The next book series that was published, The Dark Artifices, also a trilogy. This time it's a sequel book series. This takes place after the events of the entire Mortal Instruments series, and it takes place in the L8 Institute. Key players here, Julian Blackthorne, Emma Carstairs. They're the main couple that you're following, and then all of Julian's siblings, but I'm not gonna like list all of them here. In my opinion, you do need to read the Mortal Instruments in order to read the Dark Artifices. The events that happen in the Mortal Instruments is like referenced, and you see the Mortal Instruments characters as adults, and they also don't explain the magic system at all. This one is about Emma and Julian. They were childhood friends. They're parabatai with each other, and then it's forbidden love. Like I said earlier, parabatai are not allowed to fall in love. Probably the angstiest one in this entire book universe. Dark Artifices is like more new adult. They're like 1920s. Lady Midnight, Lord of Shadows, and then Queen of Air and Darkness. That's the trilogy. And then The Last Hours, which is the 4th and final series that is currently out, is a sequel companion to the Infernal Devices, the one that takes place in Victorian London. You follow the kids of the characters in this book. Key players, is that a bad idea? Is that dumb? I decided that I'm not going to say any of the names for fear that I mildly spoil the end of this book series. You do, in my opinion, need to read the Infernal Devices before reading The Last Hours. I know that might be a bit confusing, but basically the chronological order timeline of all these book series, it goes the Infernal Devices, and then The Last Hours, and then it's the Mortal Instruments, and then the Dark Artifices. But I don't think you should read it in that order. I just think there are some book series that you have to read before you read another book series. That if you want to read The Last Hours, you have to read Infernal Devices. If you want to read the Dark Artifices, then you have to read the Mortal Instruments. But aside from that, I don't think that much else matters. However, if you read the last Mortal Instruments book before you finish the Infernal Devices, you will be spoiled for something big that happens in the Infernal Devices. City of Heavenly Fire, which is the last book, was randomly released like so much later. So if you're planning on reading the Mortal Instruments and you're planning on reading the Infernal Devices, my suggestion is that you either read the Infernal Devices and then all of the Mortal Instruments, or you read all the Mortal Instruments except for the last one, then you read the Infernal Devices, and then you read the last book in the Mortal Instruments. Oh my gosh, my back hurts. Okay, next book series I'm gonna be explaining is the Throne of Glass book series by Sarah J Maas. I'm gonna quickly explain the world. There's a kingdom that is ruled by a disgusting man in power. Disgusting. He is literally tyrannical. Our main character is a Gorley, and she has been a prisoner because she was like an assassin slash thief. She has to earn her freedom in a fantastical competition. My favorite book trope. Then another tidbit of this world that becomes very important later on is that there is like another part of this world called Wenlin, and this world has fairies in it. It turns into like a full-blown fairy book by the end of the series, which I was not expecting because I don't like fairy books. So our key players here is our main female character, which is Selena, and then we have Kale. Is that how you pronounce his name? He is the captain of the guard. Then there's also the prince who freed her, which is Prince Dorian. So them three are our main characters in like the first couple books, kind of a love triangle. And then when we get into like the fairy part of this book, then there are new characters. That is what the first 3-ish books are about, which are Throne of Glass, Crown of Midnight, and Air of Fire. Air of Fire is when we get more introduced to like the fairy part of the world, which was like out of pocket, low-key out of left field when I was reading it. Other key players, Rowan. I don't want to spoil too much, but there's also a novella series called The Assassin's Blade. Chronologically, it all takes place before Throne of Glass. I think it's better to read it after the third book, Air of Fire, because I think that you should get to know the characters before you read The Assassin's Blade, and then I think that Assassin's Blade would be like a much better experience. And then we have the 4th book in the Throne of Glass series, which is Queen of Shadows, and then 5th book, Empire of Storms, and then 6th 6-ish book, which is Tower of Dawn. This book takes place in the same timeline as Empire of Storms, except you follow Kale. He has his like own little thing going on, and so it's kind of his book, but it like takes place in the same world and same timeline as Empire of Storms. And then the last book in the entire book series, which is Kingdom of Ash. So a little bit confusing. Throne of Glass, Crown of Midnight, Air of Fire, Assassin's Blade, which is a novella, Queen of Shadows, Empire of Storms, Tower of Dawn, which is also low-key an extra book, and then Kingdom of Ash. That is my reading order that I think you should read it in. I don't love the Throne of Glass series, but I know that a lot of people do. I don't think I love Sarah J Maas's writing style. Moving on to the ACOTAR series. It's a little bit different from Throne of Glass because in this world there is like a human world, which is just our world, and then there's like a separate world, fairy world, which is like where all the fairies live, and the fairy world is called Prythian. Prythian is divided into 7 courts. Each one has the ruler of the court, which is called a High Lord. The 7 courts are summer, autumn, winter, spring, night, day, and dawn. And then there's an extra horrendous court, which is just called Under the Mountain, which the ruler is a menace. So, oh, and the other thing important to know about this world is just that there are mates. It is exactly what you think. Key players here. This is the one where we have a main character. She's a girl named Feyre. She's a human. She was taken from the human world. She gets sister snatched and taken to one of the courts, which is the spring court. Here we meet key players, Tamlin, and then Tamlin's like right-hand guy, Lucian. And the important thing to know about the spring court in the first series is that all of them were cursed. They're trying to get Feyre to come and break the curse. It's like a Beauty and the Beast retelling. And then the key player that is introduced in this book is Rhysand, the ruler of the Night Court. In my opinion, Court of Mist and Fury was a way better than the first book. I understand why everybody says that. And then we have the last book in the trilogy, which is A Court of Wings and Ruin. Famously, people just say ACOTAR, ACOMAF, and ACOWAR. So yeah. Which brings us to the spin-off, Court of Silver Flames. It takes place after the original trilogy, and the main characters here are Nesta, who is Feyre's sister, and then Cassian, who is one of Rhysand's close friends. You meet him in A Court of Mist and Fury. An extra novella book is A Court of Frost and Starlight. This is a novella that connects the original trilogy to the spin-off. I also don't really love this book series. Again, it has to do with the fact that I don't like fairies and I don't like Sarah J Maas. Actually, I don't know if I hate fairies or if it's just because most of the fairy books that I read were Sarah J Maas books. But yeah, next is the Grishaverse. Okay, let me get my books for this too. So the Grishaverse is Leigh Bardugo's world that she created. The Grisha are people who basically have the ability to like manipulate certain types of matter. There's a whole like system of names that are hard to pronounce, but basically, for example, you can manipulate materials like metals and stuff. You can manipulate water, natural elements. There's something in this world called amplifiers, and amplifiers are objects that can amplify a Grisha's power, and most of the time they're either like the bones or like the claws or like the teeth of like certain animals, and they're really rare. In this world we have 2 series, the original Shadow and Bone trilogy. We have Shadow and Bone, Siege and Storm, and then Ruin and Rising. In this one, the key players are Alina. She was a girl until she finds out that she's a rare Grisha called a Sun Summoner. And then we have Mal, who's her childhood best friend. And then we have the Darkling, the commander for an army. He's also a rare type of Grisha. The main part of the world that's important is that there's something called the Shadowfold. They also call it the Unsea. It's basically a stretch of land that is just shadow and darkness, and it's impossible to cross it because there are these creatures that live in the Shadowfold called Volcra. I'm trying to find a picture. They're bloodthirsty. There's a little bit of a love triangle. Actually, it's like debatable. I think a lot of people debate whether or not it's actually a love triangle. Childhood friends, lovers. And then the second book series actually is just a duology, but it's like my favorite books like of all time, which is the Six of Crows duology. It's a companion spin-off duology. It takes place in the same world. It takes place in the city, and it's like so crusty, dusty, musty. It has a lot of like crime and gangs and stuff, and so we follow one of the gangs and they're trying to pull off a heist. There's 6 of them, and when you hear people saying the crows, this is the 6 that they're talking about. Kaz, Inej, Nina, Matthias, Jesper, and Wyland. Oh my gosh, so good. I love them. Okay, and then now here comes the age-old question of the reading order. Do I have to read Shadow and Bone before I read Six of Crows? The answer is such a strong. In fact, I recommend reading this book series first for fear that reading the Shadow and Bone trilogy will turn you off from even giving these a shot. That's why I think you should just read these first and just search up what the Grisha are or watch my old video where I explain it all. But honestly, the concept is like not that hard to grasp. It's just because Leigh Bardugo chose like complex, hard names. Other than that, I feel like the foundation foundation, the magic system and like the rules or like just like the system in place. Like I don't think that it's hard to grasp at all. Chronologically, Shadow and Bone and then the Six of Crows series, but I think that you should just read these and then read Shadow and Bone after if you want, or you can just like watch the TV show. Okay, 2 more series to get through. Next is The Folk of the Air by Holly Black, also called the Cruel Prince trilogy. I mean, this is a fairy book. Again, this is one where there's a human world and a fairy world that exists side by side. Like they're just 2 different worlds. And in this world, the fairies hate humans. Like they despise humans. Just the standout traits about fairies here is that they're beautiful. They can't lie. And they have something called glamour. Kind of like a magic, but it's kind of like they can just like cast illusions or like make you think things or like make you do things. So basically that's why it's dangerous to be a human in the fairy world, is because you're susceptible. So you can literally just be tossed around like a rag, but the good thing about being a human is that you can lie. So let's get into the book series slash reading order slash key players. So first we have the original Folk of the Air trilogy, which is the one that you probably see everywhere on TikTok, which is The Cruel Prince, and the second book, The Wicked King, and then the third book, The Queen of Nothing. So here the key players are Jude, which is our main character, a human who was brought into the fairy world at a young age, and so she grew up in the fairy world as a human, and so everybody hates her, especially our second key player, which is Cardan, the prince of the kingdom. There's many princes, so him and Jude go to school together and he pretty much terrorizes her. Enemies to lovers is basically the moral of that story. Okay, and then other key players are Taryn, who is Jude's twin sister, which becomes pertinent because they're twins. We have Oak, who is like a kid. I'm not gonna say anything else, I'm just mentioning Oak because he has a spin-off. Next we have the spin-off, which the first book came out recently and I read it recently, which is The Stolen Heir. This takes place after the events of the original trilogy. And Oak, who was like a kid in the original trilogy, is now a young adult with a whole new set of characters. Probably should read the original trilogy before you read The Stolen Heir. Next, last book series, which I had to include because why are all the most popular book series just books by white authors? Hell no that I'm not putting a POC book series into this video, or My Dead Body. So obviously we're gonna be talking about These Violent Delights, also called The Secret Shanghai World by Chloe Gong. Probably the least fantasy-y out of all of the books in this video. So first we have the original duology, which is These Violent Delights and Our Violent Ends. These books take place in 1926 Shanghai. At the time, the city is like run by 2 rivaling gangs with a blood feud each other, which is the Scarlet Gang and the White Flowers. There is like a mysterious contagion slash monster showing up in the city. Anyone who's like infected rips out their own throats, and so obviously this hurts both of the gangs, which brings us to the key players. This is a Romeo and Juliet retelling. First we have Juliet Kai. She is the heiress to the Scarlet Gang. She recently returned from America. And then we have Roma Montagov, and he is the son slash heir to the White Flowers. They are an enemies to lovers to enemies to lovers. Each of them have their own inner circles. Juliet's inner circle key players. So first we have Kathleen and then Rosalind. They are Juliet's cousins. And then we have Roma's inner circle, which is Benedict and Marshall. And then we have Roma's younger sister, Elisa. Let's get into the spin-off. Foul Lady Fortune. I think only the first book is out. I think that it's gonna be a duology. I don't really know. And so Foul Lady Fortune takes place after the events of the original duology. This time our main character is Rosalind, Juliet's cousin. New key player is Orion Hong. He is also a spy, and the 2 of them have to do undercover fake dating, and that is basically what this book is about. Now let's get into reading order. I do think that this is one where you need to read the original before you read the spin-off, otherwise you will be extremely spoiled for the original duology. And I loved both of these book series. Like, they're so good, and I would highly recommend both of them. I think that was all of it. I have class in 2 hours. Are you joshing me? There's actually plenty of time. I don't know what I'm complaining about. Hopefully, okay, I don't know if that was like any good explanation at all, but I hope that that helped someone out there either decide what they want to read. My favorite ones are obviously Shadowhunters, Grishaverse, and These Violent Delights. So that is gonna be the end of this video. Please don't flame me in the comments for saying things that are wrong or saying things that you don't agree with. Actually, that's not true. You can flame me if you want. Who am I to stop you? That's gonna be all. Thanks for watching. Be sure to subscribe down below if you haven't already. Follow me on all my socials. They're all linked in the description as always, and I will see you all in the next one.